Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Whatever time it is, wherever in this world it is that you are. Welcome once more to another live stream of Alexandra Mayers Live, page by page reading and commentary of the modern English version of the Bible. So today we're going to get into Deuteronomy chapter 17. This is the third day in a row now. I have been fairly consistent with this again, meaning this Bible reading, and I'm feeling great about it. Today, we're doing this a little bit earlier than we have the past couple of days. Ideally, I would like to get back to the original plan for this project, which was to immediately do the reading upon waking up in the morning and getting myself together and whatnot. For a while, I was doing that. Then some unforeseen things occurred in my life, but now my life is settling again. So I'm hoping we can get back to that routine. But if not, it wasn't meant to be. I have to consistently say that to myself when things don't go my way, that it wasn't meant to be. So, anyway, I hope all of you out there are having a good week. Today's Wednesday, and I'm feeling really great. I hope I'm okay, but I don't feel bad or anything. But it kind of has been my goal to become this way. But not only am I on a great track to losing weight right now, but I seem to have lost my struggle with overeating. And I'm wondering if that has to do with anything bad that could be going on with me. And I don't think it does because I don't feel like I have any issues or anything. So I guess the next time I speak to a doctor, I'll just bring it up. But I did switch to OMAD, one meal a day, which has helped me tremendously with weight loss. But I was struggling with a bit of hunger throughout the day. But over the past, I'd say 2 weeks, that has dissipated. And a lot of times when I do these daily Bible readings, I do give all of you updates on my life, my health, all that kind of stuff, because I'm doing great. But it's nice. It's nice not having that additional hunger. And I did pray for it. So maybe God gave me my wish. But I do want to make sure that I do continue to eat enough nutrients because the last thing that I need is to not have enough nutrients. I don't want to go from, having too much weight on to not having enough weight on. So we'll see. We'll see. Last night, I cooked a really good vegetarian dish. Um, as I do get older, I may end up becoming a vegetarian. I may. I easily could because I'm not really that huge of a fan of meat. But sometimes I do like a steak. Sometimes I don't crave it though. So we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Deuteronomy chapter 17. You must not sacrifice to the Lord your God any bull or sheep that has a blemish or defect, for that is detestable to the Lord your God. If there be found among you within any of your gates, which the Lord your God gives you, man or woman, who has acted wickedly in the sight of the Lord your God by transgressing his covenant, and has gone and served other gods or worshipped them, either the sun or moon or any of the host of heaven, which I have not commanded, and if it is told to you, and you have heard of it, and investigate it diligently, and it is true, and the matter is certain that such a detestable thing has happened in Israel, then you must bring forth that man or that woman who has committed that wicked thing to your gates, that has that very man or woman, and stone them with stones until they die. Ooh, this is horrible. But that's what the Lord at that time wanted. The Lord at that time, and just so that all of you are familiar with where we are going over Deuteronomy and forbidden idolatry, which began in Deuteronomy 16. But the Lord at this time did not want anyone worshiping anybody but them. God was kind of like the supreme pop star. And you know, if you're into Britney Spears, you cannot be into Jessica Simpson or Spice Girls or anyone else. Nobody but Britney. And I'm not equating Britney Spears to God in any way, shape, or form, but you guys see what I'm saying. I think that it's interesting and it's a good way to knock out your competition. Let your followers know, hey, I'm not going to have any tolerance for this. If I see you making a golden calf, I'm going to have my people stone you to death. Ugh, stoned to death. That would not be a way that I would want to go out. Anyway, the hands of the witness shall be first against him to put him to death, and afterward the hands of all the people. So you shall purge the evil from among you. Okay. Courts of law. So now we're getting into the section of Deuteronomy that has to do with the court system. If there arises a matter too difficult for you in judgment, between one kind of bloodshed and another, between one kind of lawsuit and another, and between one kind of assault and another, matters of controversy within your gates, then you must arise and go up to the place where the Lord your God shall choose. You must go to the Levitical priest or to the judge in the office those days and inquire, and they will show you the verdict of judgment. You shall do according to the verdict which they declare to you from the place where the Lord will choose to show you. And you must be careful to do all they instruct you to do. You must do according to the terms of the law which they instruct, and according to the verdict which they tell you. You must not deviate from the sentence which they show you, to the right or to the left. The man who acts presumptuously and does not listen to the priest who stands to minister before the Lord your God or to the judge, that man must die, and you must purge the evil from Israel. Then all the people will hear and fear and not act presumptuously again. Okay, so the Lord is basically, when someone does what the Lord doesn't want you to do, he's making an example of you. And that's a good way to rule over a people from my perspective. Make an example of somebody. That way others see and they say to themselves, well, I don't want that to be me. Yeah, because a lot of times people do need visual aids. That's how I like to define it. You need something to look at in order to model yourself after. Not everybody needs that, but a lot of people do. And the Lord at this time did realize that. And just for those of you who are listening to me for the first time, as I do my commentary of the modern English version of the Bible, I do find a lot of humor in it. But I also find a lot of humor in tragic situations. I've always been this way. I have a very dark sense of humor. But I've always been fascinated with theology, especially divinity and anything pertaining to Christianity, which is why I decided that being a Christian was the path for me. But that's what I do over here. I like to give my commentary on the Bible as I refamiliarize myself page by page with the Bible. And this is something that, whether you do this publicly or with a group or solo by yourself, I think every Christian at some point in time does need to read the Bible from cover to cover, because you need to understand what it is that you're a part of. And those of you who listen to me, you know I don't agree with every single thing in the Bible. I don't. But what Jesus Christ went through when it came to the level of gang stalking that he contended with in his life. That is what really makes me a Christian, because I've contended with a very high level of gang stalking and harassment. Nobody over the years really has helped me the way that I needed help. I had to help myself. Most people don't survive the kind of things that I've gone through. And people who do go through things that I've gone through need Christianity. So that's why I spread the word of Christianity. Different people do it for different reasons. I do it specifically to just make it known that if you want to gang up on somebody, you better be prepared for a whole religion to be launched from the travesties that you've partaken in. Appointing a king. When you have come into the land which the Lord your God gives you, and possess it, and dwell there, and then say, I will set a king over me, just like all the nations that are around me. You must set a king over whom the Lord your God will choose. You must select a king over you who is from among your brothers. You may not select a foreigner over you who is not your countryman. What is more, he shall not accumulate horses for himself, or cause the people to return to Egypt in order that he accumulate horses. For as the Lord has said to you, you must not go back that way ever again. He shall not acquire many wives for himself, lest his heart turn away, nor shall he acquire for himself excess silver and gold. Interesting. Interesting. So, what the Lord is saying to his people here, when it comes to appointing a leader for themselves, it needs to be someone from among their family, among themselves, among their community, not someone who didn't grow up with them. And I like that. I like that a lot. Because how are you going to lead people if you're not of them at this stage with where the Israelites were? Now, that's not always the case when it comes to selecting a leader. And the Bible does tell us that. That is just for this particular point with the development of these people that the Lord God was um, basically creating a nation out of. But the reason that I know that it was okay for a foreigner before, even though he was technically from the people, we got to think about Moses, because when Moses led the people out of Egypt, he actually had been raised by the royalty of his community, by his oppressors, by his family's oppressors. Now, he did lead his community out of bondage, yeah, but he'd been a pampered prince for so many years, even though he did in time reject his royal upbringing. But still, he did have it. So he was kind of a foreigner. But I do like how the Lord is saying, hey, the leader of you doesn't need to be somebody who becomes excessively wealthy or anything. He needs to be someone who's simply your leader, who lives as you do, who is of who you are. And sometimes that's what a community needs. Other times that is not the case, but sometimes it is. All right, let's continue. It must be when he sits on the throne of his kingdom that he shall write a copy of this law for himself on a scroll before the priest, the Levites. Okay, so he's even having the king or the leader create a contract for himself and record what he will do, what versus what he will not do, and then submit that as a binding contract to their religious leaders, the priests. Very good. That's a good way to go about things. It must be with him, and he must read it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to fear the Lord his God and carefully observe all the words of this law and these statutes and do them. Okay, so God even wants the leader of the community to consistently reaffirm within his own mind what he's promised to do on a daily basis when it comes to serving his community. Okay. That his heart will not be lifted up above his brothers, and so that he may not turn aside from the commandment to the right or to the left, to the end, so that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. All right. Well, Deuteronomy 17, I think, had a really good message, especially when it came to selecting a leader from your community to better your people and whatnot. And that's something that a lot of us need to think about nowadays when it comes to, electing the next president, if we do indeed truly elect a president. I don't think that we do. I think that the powers that be within our country, who for the most part are a bunch of jerks, just pick whoever they want to pick. But my criticism, really, when it comes to the leadership within the United States of America, is that as of late, we've been choosing leaders who are far too old. And I'm not against aging. I'm old at this stage at 45. But what I'm saying is that the leadership of any nation needs to be willing to acknowledge the current trends, the current needs and desires of the youth, but still be willing to care for the older generation. So it does need to be someone kind of in the middle. Right now, I just think that our leadership is too old for as young of a country as the United States in actuality is. I think that we need a leader who is between 40 and 55. That's my opinion. When we start getting into leadership that's approaching 70 and over 70, that's not current. It's also not competitive on the world stage. I'm not against age. I think that age shows a lot of strength. I mean, not everybody makes it to my age. Just recently, I reported on the death of someone who was a tremendous inspiration to some artwork that I'm in the midst of creating. And he was, I'd say, around 36 or 37, I think. I would not want to die that young. I mean, from my perspective, a young death is 60s. Okay. Um, I consider it a tragedy or an accident when anyone dies earlier than that, personally. But our leadership in our country needs to be younger, not just on the presidential level, when it comes to our congressional leaders, when it comes to our state leaders, our city leaders, all of that. It needs to be younger. And our leaders need to be tech savvy also, from my perspective. And they need to be tapped in spiritually, both. I actually think that spirituality and technology hold hands. And the sooner that scientists and religious leaders understand that, the sooner we will enter what will be considered the intergalactic community. But that's just my thought on that. So, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get going. So, thank you for listening for today, and I will be back tomorrow. I will be back tomorrow before 12. Okay, that's the goal. We're trying to get this earlier and earlier in the morning. My ultimate goal going into my 50s, I'm 45 now, so I got a little under 5 years to really do this. But I want to be that woman who wakes up effortlessly every day at 5 a.m. I want to be that woman who effortlessly every day gets all of her personal stuff done by 7 a.m. and then has the rest of the day before her to be productive and to do whatever God wants me to do. So take care, my fellow overachievers, because really that's the only kind of person who would listen to me, someone who is a control freak, an overachiever, and someone who's very eclectic. That's who would like me. Take care. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye bye.